When I got here in 1972, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't realize that I was going to be a part of something that was great. Sparky Anderson did two things that changed my whole career. The first thing he did, he lockered me next to Pete Rose. The second thing that Sparky did is he called me into the office and he said, I'm never gonna give you a sign. He said, I'm gonna let you play until you prove that you're not thinking of the team first. And when I walked out the door, I didn't know how to take that because it was, in my mind, put maybe a little more pressure on me. But what that allowed me to do was to play the game the way I knew how to play it. And so I respect Sparky for that, and I really, really think that's what helped make me the player that I became. The ultimate goal of every player who's ever played this game is to get to Cooperstown. I've come to understand that you get into Cooperstown if you steal a lot of bases, get a lot of hits, play on great teams. You only get a statue or a sculpture if people think you should be remembered for things other than that. So I thank you. But anytime you pass my sculpture, I would hope that you would not only think of Joe Morgan, but you'll think of all the great players who helped to make that statue possible. Long live the Big Red Machine.
Ever since the Astrodome opened in 1965, I've been looking forward to playing on a World Championship team, and I finally made it. And I'm telling you, it's a great feeling.
Now at 4, Cincinnati Reds fans and sports fans around the world are mourning the loss of one of the best second basemen to ever play the game. Of course, we're talking about Joe Morgan here. He died yesterday afternoon at his home in Danville, California. Thank you so much for joining us here on TV or wherever you happen to be streaming us right now. I'm Craig McKee. WCPO 9 has team coverage of Morgan's legendary career and the impact on the Cincinnati community as well. We begin with sports anchor Caleb Noe live from Great American Ballpark with a look at what Joe Morgan really meant to the Reds and the game of baseball. Caleb?
Yeah, hey, he's one of the most well-known, renowned baseball players in Cincinnati history, really in all of the history of baseball. He was the motor behind the Big Red Machine, and he was a big part of those World Series titles in '75 and '76. He's enshrined here in Cincinnati, right outside Great American Ballpark, with a statue. You can see flowers already laid up alongside that statue. We'll hear more from those fans coming up in just a few minutes. I'll be joined here by Courtney Francisco, but Joe Morgan, he only stood 5'7", but he still to this day stands tall in the history books for the Cincinnati Reds and really in baseball history as a whole. He's still known by many today as the greatest second baseman to ever play the game. When you look back at some of the greatest moments in Reds history, Joe Morgan connected in some way with a lot of them. Like I said, he was a big part of those 2 World Series wins. A couple former current Reds players paying their respects to Joe Morgan on Twitter today. Amir Garrett, he's a pitcher with the team. He was one of them. He said, "Love you, Joe. You meant a lot to me. You've done so much for me throughout my career. R.I.P. Joe." Tucker Barnhart, a catcher on the team, also got on Twitter today and said, in part, "He was such a wonderful man to be around and brought such a joy to our clubhouse. I'll forever cherish our conversations. R.I.P. to the greatest second baseman of all time." It's worth noting Joe Morgan spent several years recently as an advisor with the Reds. Now, Joe also spent many years as a broadcaster once his playing career was over, and one of the most well-known football broadcasters of today, Kirk Herbstreit, said this on Twitter today. He said, "He was one of the most clutch hitters I have ever seen. We all used to imitate his flipper swing that was so epic in his time," and everybody knows what he's talking about with that. The little engine to the Big Red Machine. R.I.P. Joe, number 8.
This all-time record holder for home runs and games played at second base won back-to-back MVP awards. Joe Morgan.
Joe Morgan's the best player I've ever seen. He's the best player. He never made a mistake.
He could win a game with batting, with getting a base hit. He could steal a base. He could take a walk. He could hit a home run. If you had to win a game, you'd probably put Joe up to plate.
Any list of the greatest second baseman of all time has to include Joe Morgan. Morgan was a 10-time All-Star, a 2-time MVP, a 2-time World Series champion, and won 5 consecutive Gold Glove awards.
I think Joe Morgan was probably the most dangerous second baseman hitter that I ever played against.
He did everything for us, hitting, speed, and defense, everything.
Joe Leonard Morgan was born September 19, 1943 in Bonham, Texas, before moving to Oakland, California. The oldest of 6 children, Morgan attended Castlemount High School, where he played baseball, basketball, and ran track. After 2 years at Oakland City College, Morgan signed with the newly formed franchise, the Houston Colt 45s. Morgan earned the full-time job at second base in 1965 and finished second in the Rookie of the Year voting. And though he stood only at 5'7", Morgan never let his lack of size stop him. He made 2 All-Star teams in his first 9 years with Houston. But it was a trade to Cincinnati after the 1971 season that put him on track for stardom.
We were in the room in Houston, and I'll never forget Bob Howsam saying this. He said, "We have just made a trade with Houston." And I told him afterwards, I said, "This is the best trade to me that you'll ever make in your lifetime."
In Morgan's first season with the Reds, he helped lead the team to a National League pennant, and he made the first of 8 straight All-Star teams with the club. In 1975, Morgan went on to win his first MVP award and lead the Reds to the 1975 Fall Classic. In Game 7 of that epic series, with the game tied 3-3 in the 9th, Morgan came up with men on first and third and 2 outs.
On my way to the plate, there was never one moment I didn't feel like I was going to get a base hit.
There's a looper, may drop. It's in for a hit, and the Reds have the lead 4-3.
The Reds went on to win their first World Series since 1940.
Geronimo's under, and Cincinnati has won the World Championship, beating the Boston Red Sox 4-3.
The following year produced the same result for the Big Red Machine.
That's it. The Cincinnati Reds win the World Series in 4 straight. It was a sweep.
The Reds won their 2nd straight World Series title, and Joe Morgan walked away with his 2nd consecutive MVP award. Morgan remained in Cincinnati through the 1979 season. Over the next few years, he made stops in Houston, San Francisco, Philadelphia, and Oakland, before retiring after the 1984 season. One of the highlights in his later years was in 1982. In one game in the bottom of the 7th with 2 men on, Morgan hit a go-ahead home run against the rival Dodgers on the final day of the season. That knocked Los Angeles out of the playoffs.
Way back goes Monday to the fence. It is gone! Home run, Joe Morgan! And the Giants lead the Dodgers 5-2.
Upon his retirement, Morgan found a home in the broadcast booth. After working for a few teams as an analyst, he did national games for ABC, NBC, and ESPN until 2010. But Morgan's greatest years were on the field. Morgan was elected to the Hall of Fame in his first year of eligibility in 1990.
I'm going to take my place with all these great players. And now that my induction is complete, I feel like I belong here. But no matter how long I'm in the Hall of Fame, I think I'm always going to have problems trying to say Mays, Musial, and Morgan in the same breath.
In 1999, Morgan was named to baseball's All-Century team. There will never be another quite like Joe Morgan.
Joe Morgan, without even a question, the greatest all-around second baseman in the history of the game.